hoping that I was going to be able to post this live on my YouTube, and TikTok took it away. TikTok freaking sucks, man. Maybe I can post this on my Instagram. Maybe I'll just save it or something. Oh, there's a little baby bird outside my window. It's not really a baby, but it's small. Aww. No, TikTok literally can kiss my ass. I don't understand why the lives freak out on there, but then I come on Instagram and it's perfectly fine. Like, I literally don't understand. Ugh. We're reading 61 to the end, and I guess I'm starting 61 over again. So let's just clean slate. We'll start over. We only made it like a page in anyway, so let's go ahead and just start, and then we'll go from here. Okay, chapter 61. Take friggin' 3. The war games came. All the Iron Teeth clans were granted time to rest the day before, but none took it, instead squeezing in last-minute drills or going over plans and strategies. Officials and counselors from Ardalan had been arriving for days, come to monitor the games from the top of the Northern Fang. They would report back to the King of Ardalan about what the witches and their mounts were like, and who the victor was. Weeks ago, after Abraxas had made the crossing, Manon had returned to the Omega to grins and applause. Her grandmother was nowhere to be seen, but that was expected. Manon had not accomplished anything. She had merely done what was expected of her. She saw and heard nothing of the Crochan prisoner in the belly of the Omega, and no one else seemed to know anything about her. She was half tempted to ask her grandmother, but the matron didn't summon her, and Manon wasn't in the mood to be beaten again. These days her own temper was fraying as the clans closed in tight, kept to their own halls, and hardly spoke to each other. Whatever unity they'd shown on the night of Abraxas' crossing was long gone by the time the war games arrived, replaced by centuries' worth of competition and blood feuding. The games were to take place around and between the two peaks, including the nearest canyon, visible from the Northern Fang. Each of the 3 clans would have its own nest atop a nearby mountain peak, a literal nest of twigs and branches. In the center of each lay a glass egg. The eggs were to be their source of victory and downfall. Each clan was to capture the eggs of the 2 enemy teams, but also leave behind a host to protect their own egg. The winning clan would be the one who gained possession of the 2 other eggs by stealing them from the nests, where they could not be touched by their guardians, or from whatever enemy forces carried them. If an egg shattered, it meant automatic disqualification for whoever carried it. Manon donned her light armor and flying leathers. She wore metal on her shoulders, wrists, and thighs, any place that could be hit by an arrow or sliced by the wyverns or enemy blades. She was used to the weight and limited movement, and so was Abraxas, thanks to the training she'd forced the Blackbeaks to endure these past few weeks. Though they were under strict orders not to maim or kill, they were allowed to carry 2 weapons each, so Manon took Windcleaver and her best dagger. The Shadows, Astrid, Lyn, and the Demon Twins would wield the bows. They were capable of making kill shots from their wyverns now, had taken run after run at targets in the canyons and made bullseyes each time. Astrid had swaggered into the mess hall that morning, well aware that she was lethal as all hell. Each clan wore braided strips of dyed leather across their brows, black, blue, yellow, their wyverns painted with similar streaks on their tails, necks, and sides. When all the covens were airborne, they gathered in the skies, presenting the entirety of the host to the little mortal men in the mountains below. The 13 rode at the head of the Blackbeak covens, keeping perfect rank. "Fools for not knowing what they've unleashed," Astrid murmured, the words carried to Manon on the wind. "Stupid mortal fools." Manon hissed her agreement. They flew in formation, Manon at the head, Astrid and Vesta flanking behind, then 3 rows of 3. Imogen framed by the green-eyed demons. Ghislaine flanked by Kaya and Thea, the 2 Shadows and Lyn, then Sorel, solo, in the back. A battering ram, balanced and flawless, capable of punching through enemy lines. If Manon didn't bring them down, then the vicious swords of Astrid and Vesta got them. If that didn't stop them, the 6 in the middle were a guaranteed death trap. Most wouldn't even make it to the shadows and Lynn, who would be fixing their keen eyes on their surroundings, or to Sorrel, guarding their rear. They would take out the enemy forces one by one, with hands and feet and elbows where weapons would ordinarily do the job. The objective was to retrieve the eggs, not kill the others, she reminded herself and the 13 again and again. The games began with the ringing of a mighty bell somewhere in the Omega. The skies erupted with wings and claws and shrieks a heartbeat later. They went after the blue blood egg first, because Manon knew the Yellowlegs would go for the blackbeak nest, which they did immediately. Manon signaled to her witches, and 1/3 of her force doubled back, falling behind home lines, putting up a solid wall of teeth and wings for the Yellowlegs to break against. The blue bloods, who had probably done the least planning in favor of all their various rituals and prayers, sent their forces to the blackbeaks as well, to see if extra wings could break that ironclad wall. Another mistake. Within 10 minutes, Manon and the 13 surrounded the blue blood nest, and the home guard yielded their treasure. Damn. There were whoops and hoots, not from the 13, who were stone-faced, eyes glittering, but from the other blackbeaks, the back third of whom peeled off, circled around, and joined Manon and her returning force to smash the blue bloods and Yellowlegs between them. The witches and their wyverns dove high and low, but this was as much for show as it was to win, and Manon did not yield them 1 inch as they pushed from the front and behind, an aerial vice that had wyverns nearly bucking off their riders in panic. This was what she had been built for. Even battles she'd waged on a broom hadn't been this fast, brilliant, and deadly. And once they faced their enemies, once they added in an arsenal of weapons, Manon was grinning as she placed the blue blood egg in the blackbeak nest on the flat mountain top. Moments later, Manon and Abraxas were gliding over the fray, the 13 coming up from behind to regroup. Astrid, the only one who'd kept close the entire time, was grinning like mad, and as her cousin and her wyvern swept past the northern fang and its gathered observers, the golden-haired witch sprang up from her saddle and took a running leap right off the wing. The Yellowlegs witch on the wyvern below didn't see Astrid until she'd landed on her, a hand on her throat where a dagger would have been. Even Manon gasped in delight as the Yellowlegs witch lifted her hands in surrender. Astrid let go, lifting her arms to be gathered up into the claws of her own wyvern. After a toss and a harrowing fall, Astrid returned to her own saddle, swooping until she was again beside Manon and Abraxas. He swung toward Astrid's blue wyvern, swiping with his wing, a playful, almost flirtatious gesture that made the female mount shriek in delight. Manon raised her brows at her second. "You've been practicing, it seems," she called. Astrid grinned. "I didn't claw my way to second by sitting on my ass." Then Astrid was swooping low again, but still within formation, a wing beat away. Abraxas roared, and the 13 fell into formation around Manon, 4 covens flanking them behind. They just had to capture the Yellowleg's egg and bring it back to the blackbeak nest, and it would be done. They dodged and soared over fighting covens, and when they reached the Yellowleg's line, the 13 pulled up and back, sending the other 4 covens behind them shooting in like an arrow, punching a line through the barrier that the 13 then swept through. Closest to the northern fang, the Yellowleg's nest was circled by not 3 but 4 covens, a good chunk of the host to keep behind the lines. They rose up from the nest, not individual units, but as one, and Manon smiled to herself. They raced for them, and the Yellowlegs held. Manon whistled. She and Sorrel went up and down respectively, and her coven split in 3, exactly as they'd practiced. I'm getting cold. Like the limbs of one creature, they struck the Yellowleg's line. Lines where every coven had mixed, now next to strangers and wyverns with whom they had never ridden closely before. The confusion got worse as the 13 scattered them and pushed them about. Orders were shouted, names were screamed, but the chaos was complete. They were closing in on the nest when the 4 blue blood covens swept in out of nowhere, led by Petra herself on her mount, Keely. She was nearly free-falling for the nest, which had been left wide open while the Blackbeaks and the Yellowlegs fought. She'd been waiting for this, like a fox in its hole. She swept in, and Manon dove after her, swearing viciously. A flash of yellow and a shriek of fury, and Manon and Abraxas were back flapping. veering away as Iskra flashed past the nest and slammed right into Petra. The two heirs and their wyverns locked talons and went sprawling, crashing through the air, clawing and biting. Shouts rose from the mountain and from the airborne witches. Manon panted, riding her spinning head as Abraxas leveled out above the nest, swooping back in to seal their victory. She was about to nudge him to dive when Petra screamed, not in fury, but in pain. Agonizing, soul-shredding pain, the likes of which Manon had never heard, as Iskra's wyvern clamped its jaws on Keely's neck. Iskra let out a howl of triumph, but her bull shook Keely. Petra, clinging to the saddle. Now was the time to grab the egg. She nudged Abraxas. "Go," she hissed, leaning in, bracing for the dive. Abraxas did not move, but hovered, watching Keely fight to no avail, wings barely flapping as Petra screamed again, begging Iskra to stop. "Now, Abraxas!" She kicked him with her spurs. He again refused to dive. Then Iskra barked a command to her wyvern, and the beast let go of Keely. There was a second scream then, from the mountain, from the blue-blood matron, screaming for her daughter as she plummeted down to the rocks below. The other blue-bloods whirled, but they too were too far away, their wyverns too slow to stop that fatal plunge. But Abraxas was not. And Manon didn't know if she gave the command or thought it, but that scream, that mother's scream she'd never heard before, made her lean in. Abraxas dove, a shooting star with its glistening wings. They dove and dove for the broken wyvern and the still-living witch upon it. Keely was still breathing, Manon realized as they neared, the wind tearing at her face and clothes. Keely was still breathing and fighting like hell to keep steady. Not to survive. Keely knew she would be dead any moment. She was fighting for the witch on her back. Oh. Petra had passed out, twisted in her saddle from the plunge or the loss of air. She dangled precariously, even as Keely fought with her last heartbeats to keep the fall smooth and slow. The wyvern's wings buckled and she yelped in pain. Abraxas hurtled in, wings spread as he made one pass and then a second, the canyon appearing too fast below. By the time he finished the second glide, almost close enough to touch that blood-stained, leathery hide, Manon understood. He couldn't stop Keely. She was too heavy and he too small. Yet they could save Petra. He'd seen Astrid make that jump too. She had to get the unconscious witch out of the saddle. Abraxas roared at Keely, and Manon could have sworn that he was speaking some alien language, bellowing some command as Keely made one final stand for her rider and leveled out flat. A landing platform. "My Keely," Petra had said, had smiled as she said it. Manon told herself it was for an alliance, told herself it was for show. But all she could see was the unconditional love in that dying wyvern's eyes as she unbuckled her harness, stood from the saddle, and leapt off of Abraxas. Stop! Chapter 62. Manon hit Keely, and the beast screamed, but held on as Manon hauled herself against the wind and into the saddle where Petra dangled. Her hands were stiff, her gloves making her even clumsier as she sliced with a blade through the leathers, one after another. Abraxas roared his warning. The canyon mouth loomed closer. Darkness have mercy on her. Then Manon had Petra free, the blue blood air a dead weight in her arms, her hair whipping Manon's face like 1,000 small knives. She lashed a length of leather around herself and Petra. Once, twice. She tied it, lacing her arms through Petra's. Keely kept steady. The canyon lips closed around them, shadow everywhere. Manon bellowed at the weight as she hauled the witch up out of the stirrups and the saddle. Rock brushed past, but a shadow blotted out the sun, and there was Abraxas, diving for her, plummeting, small and sleek. He was the only wyvern she'd seen bank at that speed in this canyon. "Thank you," she said to Keely, as she flung herself and Petra into the air. They fell for a heartbeat, twisting and dropping too fast, but then Abraxas was there, his claws outstretched. He swept them up, banking along the side of the canyon and over the lip, rising into the safety of the air. Keely hit the floor of the canyon with a crash that could be heard across the mountains. She did not rise again. Is that what I needed my hoodie for? That is really sad. The Blackbeaks won the war games, and Manon was crowned wing leader in front of all those frilly, sweating men from Ardalan. They called her a hero, and a true warrior, and more nonsense like that. But Manon had seen her grandmother's face when she had set Petra down on the viewing platform, seen the disgust. Manon ignored the blue-blood matron, who had gotten on her knees to thank her. She did not even see Petra as she was carried off. The next day, rumor had it, Petra would not rise from bed. They said she had been broken in her soul when Keely died. An unfortunate accident brought on by uncontrollable wyverns, the Yellowlegs matron had claimed, and Iskra had echoed. Fuck her! But Manon had heard Iskra's command to kill. She might have called Iskra out, might have challenged her, if Petra hadn't heard that command too. The vengeance was Petra's to claim. She should have let the witch die, her grandmother screamed at her that night as she struck Manon again and again for her lack of obedience, lack of brutality, lack of discipline. Manon did not apologize. She could not stop hearing the sound made as Keely hit the earth, and some part of her, perhaps a weak and undisciplined part, did not regret ensuring the animal sacrifice had not been in vain. From everyone else, Manon endured the praise heaped on her and accepted the bows from every goddamn coven, no matter their bloodline. Wing leader. She said it to herself, silently, as she and Astra and half of the 13 trailing behind them approached the mess hall where the celebration was to be held. The other half were already there, scouting ahead for any possible threat or trap. Now that she was wing leader, now that she had humiliated Iskra, others would be even more vicious, to put her down and claim her position. The crowd was merry, iron teeth glinting all around in ale, real, fresh ale brought in by those awful men from Ardalan, sloshing in mugs. Manon had one shoved into her hand, and Astrid yanked it away, drank a mouthful, and waited a moment before she gave it back. "They're not above poisoning you," her second said, winking as they made their way to the front of the room where the 3 matrons were waiting. Those men at the games had held a small ceremony, but this was for the witches. This was for Manon. She hid her smile as the crowd parted, letting her through. The 3 high witches were seated in makeshift thrones, little more than ornate chairs they'd found. The blue-blood matron smiled as Manon pressed 2 fingers to her brow. The Yellowlegs matron on the other end did nothing, but her grandmother seated in the center smiled faintly. A snake smile. "Welcome, wing leader," her grandmother said, and a cry went up from the witches, save for the 13, who stayed cool and quiet. They did not need to cheer, for they were immortal and infinite and gloriously, wonderfully deadly. "What gift can we give you? What crown can we bestow to honor what you shall do for us?" her grandmother mused. "You have a fine blade, a fearsome coven," the 13 all allowed a hint of a smirk. "What else could we give you that you do not possess?" Manon bowed her head. "There's nothing I wish for, save the honor which you have already given me." Her grandmother laughed. "What about a new cloak?" Manon straightened. She could not refuse, but this was her cloak. It had always been. "That one is looking rather shabby," her grandmother went on, waving her hand to someone in the crowd. "So here is our gift to you, wing leader. A replacement." There were grunts and curses, but the crowd gasped in hunger, in anticipation, as a brown-haired, shackled witch was hauled forward by 3 Yellowlegs cronies and forced to her knees before Manon. If her broken face, shattered fingers, lacerations, and burns did not give away what she was, then the blood-red cloak she wore did. The Crochin witch, her eyes the solid color of freshly tilled earth, looked up at Manon. How those eyes were so bright despite the horrors written on her body. How she didn't collapse right there or start begging, Manon didn't know. "A gift," said her grandmother, extending an iron-tipped hand toward the Crochin. "Worthy of my granddaughter. End her life and take your new cloak." Manon recognized the challenge, yet she drew the dagger and Astrid stepped in close, eyes on the Crochin. For a moment, Manon stared down at the witch, her mortal enemy. The Crochin— ignore my stomach if you'll hear it, it's just growling. The Crochin had cursed them, made them eternal exiles. They deserved to die, each and every one of them. But it was not her voice that said those things in her head. No, for some reason it was her grandmother's. "I Your leisure, Manon, her grandmother cooed. Choking, her lips cracked and bleeding, the Crochin witch looked up at Manon and chuckled. Manon Blackbeak, she whispered in what might have been a drawl had her teeth not been broken, her throat ringed with bruises. I know you. Kill the bitch, damn! A witch shouted from the back of the room. Manon looked into her enemy's face and raised her brows. You know what we call you? Blood welled as the Crochin's lips peeled into a smile. She closed her eyes as if savoring it. We call you the White Demon. You're on our list. The list of all you monsters to kill on sight if we ever run into you. And you, she opened her eyes and grinned, defiant, furious. You are the top of that list, for all that you have done. It's an honor, Manon said to the Crochin, smiling enough to show her teeth. Cut out her tongue, someone else called. And her, Astrid hissed. Manon flipped the dagger, angling it to sink into the Crochin's heart. The witch laughed, but it turned into a cough that had her heaving until blue blood splattered on the floor, until tears were leaking from her eyes, and Manon caught a glimpse of the deep, infected wounds on her chest. When she lifted her head, blood staining the corners of her mouth, she smiled again. Look all you want. Look at what they did to me, your sisters. How it must pain them to know they couldn't break me in the end. Manon stared down at her ruined body. Do you know what this is, Manon Blackbeak? The Crochin said. Because I do. I heard them say what you did during your games. Manon wasn't sure why she was letting the witch talk, but she couldn't have moved if she wanted to. This, the Crochin said for all to hear, is a reminder. My death, my murder at your hands is a reminder. Not to them, she breathed, pinning Manon with that soiled brown stare, but to you. A reminder of what they made you to be. They made you this way. You want to know the Grand Crochin's secret, she went on. Our great truth that we keep from you, that we guard with our lives. It is not where we hide or how to break your curse. You have known all this time how to break it. You have known for 500 years that your salvation lies in your hands alone. No, our great secret is that we pity you. No one was speaking now. But the Crochin did not break Manon's stare, and Manon did not lower her dagger. We pity you, each and every one of you, for what you do to your children. They're not born evil, but you force them to kill and hurt and hate until there is nothing left inside of them, of you. That is why you are here tonight, Manon, because of the threat you posed to that monster you call grandmother, the threat you posed when you chose mercy and saved your rival's life. She gasped for breath, tears flowing unabashedly as she bared her teeth. They have made you into monsters. Made, Manon, and we feel sorry for you. Enough, the matron said from behind, but the whole room was silent, and Manon slowly raised her eyes to her grandmother's. In them, Manon beheld a promise of the violence and pain that would come if she disobeyed. Beyond that, there gleamed nothing but satisfaction, as if the Crochin had spoken true, but only the black-beaked matron knew she had done so. The Crochin's eyes were still bright with a courage Manon could not comprehend. Do it, the Crochin whispered. Manon wondered if anyone else understood that it was not a challenge, but a plea. Manon angled her dagger again, flipping it in her palm. She did not look at the Crochin, or her grandmother, or anyone as she gripped the witch by the hair and yanked back her head, and then spilled her throat on the floor. Damn. Okay. Legs dangling off of a cliff edge, Manon sat on a plateau atop a peak in the ruins. Abraxas sprawled at her side, smelling the night-blooming flowers on the spring meadow. She had no choice but to take the Crochin's cloak, to dump her old one atop the body once it fell, once the witches gathered around to rip her apart. They have made you into monsters. Ow, I have a pimple right here and it hurts. Manon looked at her wyvern, the tip of its tail waving like a cat's. No one had noticed when she left the celebration. Even Astrid was drunk on the Crochin's blood and had lost sight of Manon slipping through the crowd. She told Sorel, though, that she was going to see Abraxas, and her third, somehow, had let her go alone. They'd flown until the moon was high, and she could no longer hear the shrieks and cackles of the witches in the Omega. Together they sat on the last of the ruins, and she gazed across the endless flat expanse between the peaks and the western sea. Somewhere out there, beyond the horizon, was a home that she had never known. Crochans were liars and insufferably preachy. The witch had probably enjoyed giving her little speech, making some grand last stand. We feel sorry for you. Manon rubbed at her eyes and braced her elbows on her knees, peering into the drop below. She would have dismissed her, wouldn't have thought twice about it, if it hadn't been for that look in Keely's eyes as she fell, fighting with every last scrap of strength to save her Petra, or for Abraxas's wing, sheltering Manon against icy rain. The wyverns were meant to kill and maim and strike terror into the hearts of their enemies, and yet, Manon looked toward the star-flecked horizon, leaning her face into a warm spring breeze, grateful for the steady, solid companion lounging behind her. A strange feeling, that gratitude for his existence. Then there was that other strange feeling that pushed and pulled at her, making her replay the scene in the mess hall again and again. She had never known regret. Not true regret, anyway. But she regretted not knowing the Crochan's name. She regretted not knowing who the new cloak on her shoulders had belonged to, where she had come from, how she had lived. Somehow, even though her long life had been gone for 10 years, somehow that regret made her feel incredibly, heavily mortal. Y'all, I seriously think I pulled something in my back. Oh, y'all. If there is ever a time that I needed a vacation, it is definitely after this week. I am literally, my entire body aches. I'm so sore. Ugh. And I have to work late again tomorrow. Ugh. Chapter 63. Adian let out a low whistle and offered Cale the bottle of wine between them on the rooftop of Selena's apartment. I hate reading about this fucking apartment, y'all. I absolutely hate reading about it. It makes me so sad. Cale, not feeling at all like drinking, shook his head. Is that my car making that noise? Sorry. Maybe I should turn it off. No, it hasn't been used all day. Oh, there, it's gone. Okay, it's gone. I wish I'd been there to see it. He gave Cale a wolfish smile. I'm surprised you're not condemning me for saying that. Whatever creatures the king sent within the rock, I do not think they were innocent men, Cale said. Or really men at all anymore. She had done it. Had made such a statement that even days later Adian was still celebrating. Quietly, of course. Cale had come here tonight planning to tell Adian and Ren what he knew of the spell the king had used and how they might destroy it, but he hadn't yet. He still wondered what Adian would do with that knowledge, especially once Cale left for Anil in 3 days. When she gets home, you need to lie low in Anil, Adian said, swigging from the bottle. Once it comes out who she was all these years. And it would. Cale knew. He was already preparing to get Dorian and Sorscha out of the castle. Even if they had done nothing wrong, they had just been her friends. If the king knew that Selena was Aelin, it could be just as deadly as if he discovered that Dorian had magic. When she came home, everything would change. Yes, Aelin would come home, but not to Cale. She would come home to Terrasen, to Adian and Ren and the court that was regathering in her name. She would come home to war and bloodshed and responsibility. Part of him still could not fathom what she'd done to Narok, the battle cry she'd issued from across the sea. He could not accept that part of her, so bloodthirsty and unyielding. What the fuck does he mean, bloodthirsty? How the fuck is that bloodthirsty? If she wouldn't have killed him, he would have fucking gutted her. Stop talking about my girl like that. Even as Selena, it had been hard to swallow at times, and he had tried to look past it. But as Aelin, he'd known, since the moment he figured out who she was, that while Selena would always pick him, Aelin would not. And it would not be Selena Sardothian who returned to this continent. It would take time, he knew, for it to stop hurting, to let go. But the pain wouldn't last forever. Is there... Adian clenched his jaw as if debating saying the rest. Is there anything you want to tell me? Or is there anything you want to tell her or give her? At any moment, any time, Aedion might have to flee to Terrasen and to his queen. The eye of Elena was warm at his neck, and Chaol almost reached for it, but he couldn't bring himself to send her that message, or to let go of her that completely. Not yet. Just as he couldn't bring himself to tell Aedion about the clock tower. Tell her, Chaol said quietly, that I had nothing to do with you. Tell her you barely spoke to me, or Dorian. Tell her I'm fine in Anil, and that we're all safe. Aedion was quiet long enough that Chaol got up to leave, but then the general said, "What would you have given, just to see her again?" Chaol couldn't turn around as he said, "It doesn't matter now." And we're getting more Saoirse Dorian content! Ah! Thank God. Thank God. This is what I've been needing. This is what I've been needing. Yup, this is what I've been needing. Saoirse rested her head on the soft spot between Dorian's shoulder and chest, breathing in the smell of him. He was already sleeping deeply. Almost. They had almost taken things over the edge tonight, but she had again hesitated. Hold on, because this is sounding a little too familiar. This is sounding a little too familiar, and I don't like it, because the last time something like this happened, one of the two ended up dying. So I'm a little anxious now, but I think I'm just reading too much into it. I think I'm reading too much into it. Okay, I'm reading too much into it. Too much. We're on chapter 63, page 538. They had almost taken things over the edge tonight, but she had again hesitated. Again let that stupid doubt creep in when he asked her if she was ready. And though she wanted to say yes, she had said no. She lay awake, stomach tight and mind racing. There was so much she wanted to do and see with him, but she could feel the world shifting, the wind changing. Aelin Galathinius was alive, and even if Saoirse gave everything to Dorian, the upcoming weeks and months would be trying enough for him without having to worry about her. If the captain and the prince decided to act on their knowledge, if magic was freed, it would be chaos. People might go as mad from its sudden return as they'd gone from its departure. She didn't want to think what the king would do. Yet no matter what happened tomorrow, or next week, or next year, she was grateful. Grateful to the gods, to fate, to herself for being brave enough to kiss him that night. Grateful for this little bit of time she'd been given with him. She still thought about what the captain had said all those weeks ago, about being queen. But Dorian needed a true queen if he was to survive this. Someday, perhaps, she'd have to face the choice of letting him go for the greater good. She was still quiet and small. If she could hardly stand up to Amethy, how could she ever be expected to fight for her country? No, she could not be queen, for there were limits to her bravery, and to what she would offer, or could offer. But for now she could be selfish for a little longer. She's gonna break up with him. She's gonna break up with him. No! For 2 days, Chaol continued to plan an escape for Dorian and Saoirse, Aedion working with him. They hadn't objected when he'd explained, and there had even been a hint of relief in the prince's eyes. They would all go tomorrow, when Chaol left for Anil. It was the perfect What? Wait, what? What is going on? What? It was the perfect excuse to get them out of the castle. They wanted to accompany their friend for a day or two before bidding him farewell. He knew Dorian would try to return to Rifthold, that he'd have to fight him on it, but at least they could both agree that Saoirse was to get out. Some of Aedion's own belongings were already at the apartment, where Ren continued to gather resources for them all. Just in case, Chaol had turned in his formal suggestions for his replacement to the king, and the announcement would be made tomorrow morning. After all these years, all that planning and hoping and working, he was leaving. He hadn't been able to bring himself to leave his sword to his replacement, as he should have done. Tomorrow, He only had to get through tomorrow. But there was no way Cale could prepare for the summons he received from the King of Ardalan to meet him in his private council chamber. When he arrived, Aedion was already inside. Surrounded by 15 guards Cale did not recognize, all wearing those tunics with the royal wyvern embroidered with black thread. The King of Ardalan was grinning. Y'all, I can't do this. I'm scared shitless right now. What's gonna happen? Okay, but nothing bad can be happening. Nothing bad can happen because I asked y'all and y'all said that I would only need my hoodie for the wyvern part, okay? I asked y'all and y'all told me that the part that I needed my hoodie for was the wyvern part. So I'm not expecting to need my hoodie right now. So nothing bad is gonna happen. It's just gonna be one of those fucking scary moments where, you know, it seems like something bad is gonna happen and then nothing bad ends up happening. And that is what I'm sticking with. That is what I'm sticking with. Y'all, for real. For real, I can't. I don't even know who I'm more scared for. If I'm scared for Cale, if I'm scared for no, I'm more scared for Aedion. Yeah. If anyone touches Aedion. Dorian heard within minutes that Aedion and Cale had been summoned to his father's private council room. As soon as he heard, he ran. Not for Cale, but for Sorscha. He almost collapsed with relief when he found her in her workroom, but he willed strength to his knees as he crossed the room in a few strides and grabbed her hand. We're getting out. Now. You are getting out of this castle right now, Sorscha. Oh, fuck. She pulled back. What happened? Tell me what. We're going now, he panted. Oh, I don't think so. Someone purred from the open doorway. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. 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 No! 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 He turned to find Amethy, the old healer, standing there, arms crossed and smiling faintly. Dorian could do nothing, as half a dozen unfamiliar guards appeared behind her, and she said, "The king wants to see you both in his chambers, immediately." Oh my god, no. Oh my god. What the fuck is going on? What the fuck is going on? What the fuck is going on? What the fuck is going on, y'all? What is going on? What is happening? Why? What is happening? What the fuck is happening? What the fuck is happening? No! No, 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 no. Chapter 64. What the fuck? In the council room high in the glass castle, Aedion had already marked the exits and considered what furniture he could use as a defense or as a weapon. They'd taken his sword when they'd come for him in his rooms, though they hadn't shackled him. A lethal mistake. The captain wasn't shackled either. In fact, the fools had left him armed. The captain was doing his best to look vaguely confused as the king watched them from his glass throne. I don't even have the energy to fucking do their voices. I can't. What an interesting night this has turned out to be. What interesting information my spies have brought me, the king said, looking from Aedion to Cale to Dorian and his woman. My most talented general is found to be sneaking around Rifthold in the dead of night after spending so much of my gold on parties he does not even bother attending. And he has somehow, despite years of animosity, become close with my captain of the guard, while my son, Aedion did not envy the smile the king gave the crown prince, has apparently been dabbling with the rabble. Again. To his credit, Dorian snarled and said, "Consider your words carefully, father." Oh? The king raised a thick, scarred brow. "I had it on good authority that you were planning to run away with this healer. Why would you ever do such a thing?" The prince's throat bobbed, but he kept his head high. "Because I can't stand the thought of her spending another minute in this festering shithole that you call a court." Oh my god! Period, Dorian! Aedion couldn't help but admire him for saying it, for yielding nothing until the king showed his hand. Smart man. Brave man. But it might not be enough to get them out of this alive. "Good," the king said. "Neither can I." Oh, no. Oh, no. Y'all, please tell me he's gonna exile her, because this is not looking good for him. This is not looking good for him or her. Oh my god! No! He waved a hand, and before Adian could bark a warning, the guard separated the prince and the girl. 4 held Dorian back, and 2 forced Sorsha to kneel with a kick behind the knees. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no, 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 no. They're just gonna beat her up a little bit. Maybe they might whip her, and then he'll exile her. The worst that could happen to her right now is that she's gonna get beat the fuck up. She's gonna get beat the fuck up. Okay, that's it. That's the only thing I will accept. I'm shaking. Y'all, what the fuck is going on? She cried out as she hit the marble, but went silent. The whole room went silent as a third guard pulled a sword and placed it lightly on the back of her slave. I can't have anything! I can't have anything! I can't have anything in this shithole! I can't! Oh my god. Oh my god, I'm gonna be physically sick! I'm gonna be physically sick! Oh my god. I'm gonna be physically sick. He's just scaring her. I'm not even looking at the comments right now because I'm so scared of what I'm gonna see. I'm staring myself dead in the eyes. He is going to scare Dorian. That's it. He's gonna say, the next time that you do this shit, I will go through with this. Don't ever fucking do this shit again. And then Dorian's gonna get Sorsha the hell out of there. That's what's gonna happen. And I'm gonna throw up if anything else happens. Y'all? I'm scared. I'm scared. Okay. I don't have the hoodie, y'all. I don't have it. Stop telling me to grab it. Don't you dare, Dorian growled. Adian looked to Cale, but the captain was frozen. These were not his guards. Their uniforms were those of the men who had hunted Ren. They had the same dead eyes, the same vileness that had made him not at all regret killing their colleagues in the alley. He'd taken down 6 that night with minimal damage. Sorry, how many could he cut down now? His gaze met the captain's, and the captain flicked his eyes to the guard who held Adian's sword. That would be one of his first moves. Get Adian a sword so they could fight. Because they would fight. They would fight their way out of this, and to their deaths. The king said to Dorian, I would choose your next words carefully, Prince. Cale couldn't start the fight. Not with that sword resting on Sorsha's neck. That was his first goal. Get the girl out alive. Then Dorian, the king wouldn't kill. Not here. Not this way. But Adian and Sorsha had to get away. And that could not happen until the king called off the guard. Then Dorian spoke. Let her go, and I'll tell you anything. Dorian took a step toward his father, palms out. She has nothing to do with whatever this is, whatever you think has happened. But you do. The king was still smiling. There was a carved, round bit of familiar black stone resting on the small table side beside the king. From the distance, Cale couldn't see what it was, but it made his stomach turn over regardless. Tell me, son, why were General Ash River and Captain Westfall meeting these months? I don't know. The king clicked his tongue, and the guard raised his sword to strike. Cale started forward as Sorsha sucked in a breath. No! Stop! Dorian flung out his hand, then answered the question. I am, you bastard! I am! I don't know why they were meeting! The guard's sword still remained up, ready to fall before Cale could move an inch. Do you know that there has been a spy in my castle for several months now, Prince? Someone feeding information to my enemies and plotting against me with a known rebel leader. Shit! He had to mean Ren. The king knew who Ren was, had sent those men to hunt him down. Just tell me who, Dorian, and you could do whatever you wish with your friend. The king didn't know then. If it was he or Adian or both of them who had been meeting with Ren, he didn't know how much they'd learned about his plans, his control over magic. Adian was somehow still keeping his mouth shut, somehow still looking ready for battle. Adian, who had survived for so long without hope, holding together his kingdom as best as he could, who would never see the queen he so fiercely loved. He deserved to meet her, and he deserved to have him serve in her court. Cale took a breath, preparing himself for the words that would doom him, but it was Adian who spoke. You want a spy? You want a traitor? The general drawled. Oh, please don't. Adian! Adian, my love! Please don't do this! The general drawled and flung his replicated black ring on the floor. Then here I am. You want to know why the captain and I were meeting? It was because your stupid bastard of a boy captain figured out that I'd been working with one of the rebels. He'd been blackmailing the information out of me for months to give to his father to offer you when the Lord of Anil needed a favor. And you know what? Adian grinned at them all, the northern wolf incarnate. If the king was shocked about the ring, he didn't show it. All you monsters can burn in hell, because my queen is coming, and she will spike you to the walls of your goddamn castle, and I can't wait to help her gut you like the pigs you are. And in that moment, I lost the love of my life. I lost the love of my life. What the fuck is going on? He spat at the king's feet, right on top of the fake ring that had stopped bouncing. It was flawless. The rage and the arrogance and the triumph. But as he stared each of them down, Kale's heart fractured. Because for a flicker, as those turquoise eyes met with his, there was none of that rage or triumph, only a message to the queen that Adian would never see. And there were no words to convey it. The love and the hope and the pride. The sorrow at not knowing her as the woman she had become. The gift Adian thought he was giving her in sparing Kale's life. Kale nodded slightly because he understood that he could not help. None at this point. Not until that sword was removed from Sorcia's neck. When he could fight. And he might still get them out alive. Adian didn't struggle as the guards clapped shackles around his wrists and ankles. I've always wondered about that ring, the king said. Was it the distance or some true strength of spirit that made you so unresponsive to its suggestions? But regardless, I'm so glad that you confessed to treason, Adian. He spoke with slow, deliberate glee. So glad you did it in front of all these witnesses, too. It'll make your execution that much easier. Though I think... The king smiled and looked at the fake black ring. I think I'll wait. Perhaps give it a month or two, just in case any last-minute guests have to travel a long way for the execution. Just in case someone gets it into her head that she can rescue you. Adian snarled. Kale bit back his own reaction. Perhaps the king had never had anything on them. Perhaps this had only been a ruse to get Adian to confess to something, because the king knew that the general would offer up his own life instead of an innocence. The king wanted to savor this, and savor the trap that he had now set for Aelin, even if it cost him a fine general in the process. Because once she heard that Adian was captured, when she knew the execution date, she would run to Rifthold. After she comes for you, Adian promised the king, they'll have to scrape what's left of you off the walls. The king only smiled. Then he looked to Dorian and Sorsja, who seemed to be hardly breathing, and the healer remained on the floor and did not lift her head as the king braced his massive forearms on his knees and said, "And what do you have to say for yourself, girl?" Honestly, I would have taken Adian over Sorsja. Because now Sorsja is going to get to go free, but at what cost? Because Adian is now going to be fucking, like, in a fucking cell being tortured and shit. But Aelin will save him, so I guess he just has to survive a month of being in prison, or a month or two, and then Aelin will come and she'll save him, and Sorsja by then will be far away, and Dorian will be, I don't know where Dorian will be, and Kale will be in Anil, so everyone will still be alive. And I guess if I had to pick an ending that happened, it would be this. So I guess. She trembled, shaking her head. That's enough, Dorian snapped, sweat gleaming on his brow. The prince winced in pain as his magic was repressed by the iron in his system. Adian confessed. Now let her go. Why should I release the true traitor in this castle? What? What? The true traitor? The true traitor? Sorsja couldn't stop shaking as the king spoke. All her years of remaining invisible, all her training, first from those rebels in Fenharold, then the contacts that they'd sent her family to in Rifthold, all of it ruined. Oh my god. She was the traitor. She was the traitor the whole time. Oh my god. such interesting letters you send to your friend. Why, I might not ever have read them, the king said, if you hadn't left one in the rubbish for your superior to find. See, you rebels have your spies, and I have mine, and as soon as you decided to start using my son, she could feel the king smirking at her. How many of his movements did you report to your rebel friends? What secrets of mine have you given away over the years? Leave her alone, Dorian growled. It was enough to set her crying. He still thought she was innocent. Oh, I just popped the pimple that's on my lip. No big deal. Literally disgusting. Oh my God. And maybe he could get out of this if he was surprised enough by the truth, if the king saw his son's shock and disgust. So Sorscha lifted her head, even as her mouth trembled, even as her eyes burned and stared down the king of Ardalan. You destroyed everything that I have, and you deserve nothing that's to come, she said. Then she looked at Dorian, whose eyes were indeed wide, his face bone white. I was not supposed to love you, but I did. I do. And there's so much I wish we could have done together. Seen together. The prince just stared at her, then walked to the foot of the dais and dropped to his knees. Name your price, he said to his father. Ask it of me, but let her go. Oh my God. Oh my God. Exile her, banish her, anything, say it and it will be done. She began shaking her head, trying to find the words to tell him that she hadn't betrayed him. Not her prince. The king, yes. She had reported his movements for years, in each carefully written letter to her friend, but never Dorian. The king looked at his son for a long moment. He looked at the captain, an Adian, so quiet and so tall, beacons of hope for their future. Then he looked again at his son, on his knees before the throne, on his knees for her, and said, no. Oh, God. Oh, no, Sorscha, girl, you're not making it out of this alive. Oh, my God! Ah! No. Cale thought he had not heard it. The word that cleaved through the air just before the guard's sword did. One blow from that mighty sword. That was all it took to sever Sorscha's head. You know, I'm not even really crying for her. I'm crying for Dorian because I really wanted them to work out because, first of all, I bought her fucking lie, right? I bought her lies. I thought she was a good person. She is a good person. I mean, obviously she's a good person. She's a rebel. She's fighting against the king. Hold on. The scream that erupted out of Dorian was the worst sound that Cale had ever heard. Worse even than the wet, heavy thud of her head hitting the red marble. Adian began roaring and cursing at the king, thrashing against his chains, but the guards hauled him away, and Cale was too stunned to do anything other than watch the rest of Sorscha's body topple to the ground. And then Dorian, still screaming, was scrambling through the blood toward it. Oh my God. Oh my God. Toward her head, as if he could put it back. As if he could piece her together. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. You liars! Y'all lied to me! I can't. I'm gonna throw up. Oh my god. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, God. Chapter 65. Kale hadn't been able to move a muscle from the moment the guard cut off Sorcha's head to the moment Dorian, still kneeling in a pool of her blood, stopped screaming. Oh, God. Dorian's gonna lose control. Dorian's gonna lose control. I'm fine. This is fine. This is fine. This is what awaits traitors, the king said to the silent room, and Kale looked at the king as his shattered friend and drew his sword. The king rolled his eyes. Put away your sword, Captain. I've no interest in your noble antics. You're to go home to your father tomorrow. Don't leave this castle in disgrace. Kale kept his sword drawn. I will not go to Anil, he growled, and I will not serve you a moment longer. There is one true king in this room. There always has been, and he is not sitting on that throne. Dorian stiffened, but Kale went on. There's a queen in the north, and she has already beaten you once. She will beat you again and again. Because what she represents and what your son represents is what you fear most. Hope. You cannot steal it, no matter how many you rip from their homes and enslave, and you cannot break it, no matter how many you murder. The king shrugged. Perhaps, but maybe I can start with you. He flicked his fingers at the guards. Kill him too. I'm gonna lose Kale now as well? Kale whirled to the guards behind him and crouched, ready to fight a path out for himself and Dorian. Then a crossbow snapped, and he realized there had been others in the room, hidden behind impossibly thick shadows. He had only enough time to twist, to see the bolt firing for him with deadly accuracy. Only enough time to see Dorian's eyes widen and the whole room plunge into ice. Fuck. Fucking shit! God damn it! Can I not have one moment of peace? But Dorian's not gonna die. I know that for a fact. The arrow froze mid-flight and dropped to the floor, shattering in 100 pieces. Kale stared at Dorian in mute horror as his friend's eyes glowed a deep, raging blue, and the prince snarled at the king. Don't you touch him. The eyes spread across the room, up the legs of the shocked guards, freezing over Sorcha's blood, and Dorian got to his feet. He raised both hands. My sweet boy, my little baby. He raised both hands, and light shimmered along his fingers, a cold breeze whipping through his hair. I knew you had it, boy, the king started, standing, but Dorian threw out a hand, and the king was blasted into his chair by a gust of frozen wind, the window behind him shattering. Wind roared into the room, drowning out all sound. All sound except Dorian's words as he turned to Kale, his hands and clothes soaked with Sorcha's blood. Run. And when you come back... The king was getting to his feet, but another wave of Dorian's magic slammed into him, knocking him down. There were tears staining Dorian's bloody cheeks now. When you come back, the prince said, burn this place to the ground. A wall of crackling black hurtled toward them from behind the throne. Go, Dorian ordered, turning toward the onslaught of his father's power. Light exploded from Dorian, blocking out the wave, and the entire castle shook. People screamed. Kale's knees buckled. For a moment, he debated making a stand with his friend, right there and then, but he knew that this had been another trap. One for Adian and Aelin, one for Sorcha, and this one. This one to draw out Dorian's power. Dorian had known it, too. Known it, and still walked into it so Kale could escape. To find Aelin and tell her what had happened here today. Someone had to get out. Someone had to survive. He looked at his friend. perhaps for the last time, and said what he had always known from the moment they'd met, when he'd understood that the prince was his brother in soul. "I love you." Dorian merely nodded, eyes still blazing, and lifted his hands again toward his father. Brother, friend, king. As another wave of the king's power filled the room, Chaol shoved through the still frozen guards and fled. Aedion knew everything had gone to hell as the castle shuddered, but he was already on his way to the dungeons, bound from head to toe. It had been such an easy choice to make. When the captain had been about to take the fall for both of them, he'd thought only of Aelin. What it would do to her if her friend died. Even if he never got to see her, it was still better than having to face her when he explained that the captain was dead. From the sound of it, it seemed the prince was providing a distraction so the captain could flee, and because there was no way in hell the prince would let his father go unpunished for that woman's death, so Aedion Ashriver let himself be led into the darkness. He did not bother with prayers for himself or for the captain. The gods had not helped him these past 10 years, and they would not save him now. He did not mind dying, though he still wished he'd gotten a chance to see her just once. Dorian slammed into the marble floor, where the puddle of Sorcia's blood had now melted. This bitch couldn't have put him anywhere else in the fucking room! Even as his father sent a wave of blinding, burning black power crashing into him, filling his mouth and his veins, even as he screamed, all he could see was that moment, when the sword cut through flesh and tendon and bone. He could still see her wide eyes, her hair glimmering in the light as it too was severed. He should have saved her. It had been so sudden. But when the arrow had fired at Chaol, that was the death he could not endure. Chaol had drawn his line, and Dorian was on his side of it. Chaol had called him his king, so revealing his power to his father did not frighten him. No, to save his friend dying did not scare him one bit. The blast of power receded, and Dorian was left panting on the stones. He had nothing left. Chaol had gotten away. It was enough. I'm sorry. I love him so much. He reached out an arm toward where... Oh my god! Oh my god! He reached out an arm to where Sorcia's body lay. His arm burned. Maybe it was broken, or maybe it was his father's power still branding him, but he reached for her nonetheless. By the time his father stood over him, he'd managed to move his hand a few inches. Do it, Dorian rasped. He was choking on blood, and the gods knew what. Oh, I don't think so, his father said, digging a knee into his chest. It won't be death for you, my gifted son. There was something dark and gleaming in his father's hands. Dorian fought like hell against the guards now pinning his arms, trying to drag up any ounce of power as his father brought the collar of wordstone around his neck, or toward his neck. A collar, like the ones worn by those things Chaol had said were in the Dead Islands. No. No. He was screaming it because he'd seen that creature in the catacombs and heard what was being done to Roland and Caltaine. He had seen what a mere ring could do. This was an entire collar, with no visible keyhole. Hold him still, his father barked, digging his knee in deeper. The breath was sucked from his chest and his ribs groaned in agony, but there was nothing Dorian could do to stop it. He wrenched his arm from one of the guards, wrenched it free, and reached, bellowing. He had just touched Sorcia's limp hand when cool stone gripped his throat. There was a faint click and hiss, and the darkness swept in to tear him apart. I'm not having fun! I'm not He did not have the time to take anything except for what he had on him as he sprinted like hell for Dorian's rooms. Fleetfoot was waiting, as she had been all night, and he scooped her over his shoulder and hauled her to Selena's room and into the secret passage. Down and down they went, the dog unusually obedient. 3 blasts shook the castle, shaking dust from the stones above. He kept running, knowing each blast meant Dorian was alive, a bit longer, and dreading the silence to come. Hope. That was what he carried with him. The hope of a better world than that Adian and Sorsha and Dorian had sacrificed themselves for. He made one stop. With Fleetfoot still gripped over his shoulder. With a silent prayer to the gods for their forgiveness, Cale hurtled into the tomb to grab Damaris, shoving the sacred blade through his belt and stuffing a few handfuls of gold into his cloak pockets. And though the skull-shaped knocker didn't move, he told Mort precisely where he would be. Just in case she comes back. In case she doesn't know. Mort remained stationary, but Cale had the sense he'd been listening all the same as he grabbed the satchel containing Dorian and Selena's magic books and fled to the passage that would take him to the sewer tunnel. A few minutes later, he was raising the heavy iron grate over the sewer stream. The outside beyond was wholly dark and still. As he heaved Fleetfoot back into his arms to swing them both around the wall and onto the stream bank beyond, the castle went silent. There were screams, yes, but silence lurked beneath them. He did not want to know if Dorian was alive or dead. He couldn't decide which was worse. Okay. So we lost. But it's okay. Because it's a temporary loss. Because I know that this man is not going to get away with everything forever, right? So yes, we lost today. And it's sad. But you know what? I don't even fucking know at this point. I don't even fucking know. I don't even know. Because who knows? SJM could end the entire series with, the king just killing everybody. But and you know what? I was wondering why in some fan art Dorian has like scars on his throat. And now I know. But at least now I know he gets free. Right? Selena's coming back to Rifthold like right now. So she's gonna come back. She's gonna know exactly what happened. And she's gonna know how to save everyone. And she's gonna know how to stop it. That's what's gonna happen. When Cale got to the hidden apartment, Ren was pacing. There was blood on him, he realized. The spray from Sorsha's neck. Cale didn't know how he found the words, but he told Ren what had happened. So it's just us? Ren asked quietly. Cale nodded. Fleetfoot was sniffing around in the apartment, having made her inspection and decided Ren wasn't worth eating. Even after Ren had protested that the dog might draw too much attention, she was staying. That was non-negotiable. A muscle feathered in Ren's jaw. Then we find a way to free Adian, as soon as possible. You and me. Between your knowledge of the castle and my contacts, we can find a way. Then he whispered, "You said Dorian's woman was a healer?" When Cale nodded, Ren looked like he was about to be sick, but he asked, Was she named Sorsha? Of course, because why not drive the knife a little bit deeper? Why not go for that extra mile? The extra oomph to make it all hurt so much more. You were the friend she sent those letters to, Cale breathed. I kept pressing her for information, Ren covered his face and took a shuddering breath. When his eyes at last met Cale's, they were bright. Slowly, Ren held out a hand. You and me, we'll find a way to free them. Both Adian and your prince. Cale didn't hesitate as he gripped the rebel's outstretched hand. I do remember that. And I haven't known a moment of peace since. It's so cute. So cute. So funny. Y'all, that lake is looking mighty tempting right now. Mighty tempting. How many fucking pages do we have left? We have like 4 pages left. Okay. Chapter 66. Morath, Manon said. Manon, I'm sorry. I don't give a fuck about you right now, my love. I need to know what's going on with Dorian. Wondering if she heard right. For battle? Her grandmother turned from the desk, eyes flashing. To serve the Duke, just as the king ordered. He wants the wing leader in Morath with half the most... Can't even read anymore, y'all. With half the host ready to fly at a moment's notice. The others are here to stay here under Ispra's command to monitor the north. And where will you be? Her grandmother hissed, rising. So many questions now that you're wing leader. Manon bowed her head. They had not spoken of the Crochin. Manon had gotten the message. Next time, it would be one of the 13 on her knees. So she kept her head down as she said, I only ask because I would not be parted from you, grandmother. Liar. And a pathetic one. Her grandmother turned back to the desk. I shall remain here, but come to you in Morath during the summer. We have work to finish there. It's gonna be fun. Yeah. So much fun. Honestly, I was already thinking about doing lives while I was on vacation. Because, like, I cannot wait to start Queen of Shadows. I will make my family mad by doing lives and doing this over vacation. I don't care. Maybe I'll do like a couple. Manon lifted her chin, her new red cloak pooling around her, and asked, And when shall we fly to Morath? Her grandmother smiled, iron teeth shining. Tomorrow. Even under the cover of darkness, the warm spring breeze was full of new grass and snow-melted rivers. Sorry. Crying. Sorry. Only disrupted by the booming of wings as Manon led the host south along the fangs. They kept the shadows of the mountains. God damn it! It could not have gone worse, could it? It could not have gone worse than what it did. Oh, God. Okay. It's just a book. They're fake. They're not real. It's just a book. Just a book. Oh, God. Shifting ranks and dipping out of sight to prevent anyone from getting an accurate count on their numbers. Manon sighed through her nose, and the wind ripped the sound away just as it streamed her long red cloak behind her. Astrid and Sorrel flanked her, silent like the rest of the covens for the long hours they'd flown down the mountain. What's worse, this or Sam? Sam. I'm sorry, but Sam will always be the worst. Sam will always be the worst thing that will ever happen in this series. And I mean that. Nothing will ever compare to how I felt after Sam died. Literally, I was mourning him like I had actually lost somebody that I knew. Yeah, nothing will ever be as bad as that. And I can say that with 100% confidence. Nothing in this series will ever be that bad. I was, yeah, for lack of better words, I was obliterated. Y'all, no, seriously, nothing will ever be that bad for me. Sorrel was stone-faced, monitoring the skies around them, but Astrid was smiling faintly. It was not a wild grin, or one that promised death, but a calm smile. No, yeah, I can't even read Sam's name without crying. Okay, go again. It's because I'm emotional right now. To be aloft and skimming the clouds, where every black peak belonged, where Manon belonged. Astrid caught her stare and smiled wider, as if there wasn't a host of witches flying behind them and Morath lying ahead. Her cousin turned her face into the wind, breathing it in. Exultant? I don't know that. I can't fucking read. Manon did not let herself savor that beautiful breeze or open herself to that joy. She had work to do. They all did. Despite what the Crochan had said, Manon had not been born with a heart or a soul. She did not need them. Once they fought the king's war, when his enemies were bleeding out around them, only then would they ride to reclaim their broken kingdom, and she would go home at last. Chapter 67. Oh, goddamn, we got 2 pages. We got 2 chapters back to back. The rising sun was staining the Avery River with gold as the cloaked man strode onto a rickety dock in the slums. Fishermen were heading out for the day. Revelers were stumbling in for the night, and Rifthold was still asleep, unaware of what had happened the night before. The man pulled out a lovely blade, its eagle pommel glinting in the first light of dawn. For a long moment he stared at the sword, thinking of all that it had done, all that had once embodied. But there was a new sword at his side, an ancient king's blade from a time when good men had served noble rulers and the world had prospered for it. He would see that world reborn, even if it took his last breath. Even if he had no name now, no position or title save Oathbreaker, traitor, liar. No one noticed when the sword was jettisoned over the river, its pommel catching the sun and burning like golden fire, a flash of light before it was swallowed by the dark water, never to be seen again. Oh my god, it hurts, y'all. This fucking hurts. Oh my god. Chapter 68. It turned out that the submission part of a blood oath was something Rowan liked to interpret as it suited him. During their 2-week trek to the nearest port in Wendelin, he bossed Selena around even more, seeming to believe that now he was part of her court and entitled him to certain non-negotiable rights regarding her safety, her movements, and her plans. She was starting to wonder, as they approached the docks at the end of the cobblestone street, if she had made a teensy mistake in binding him to her forever. They'd been arguing for the past 3 days about her next move, about the ship she'd hired to take her back to Ardalan. When she gets to Ardalan and sees what became of her friends, I literally... This plan is absurd, Rowan said for the 100th time, stopping in the shadows of a tavern by the docks. The sea air was light and crisp. Going back alone seems like suicide. One, I'm going back as Selena, not Aelin. Selena, who did not accomplish the king's mission and who they are now going to hunt down. The king and queen of Ilwy should have gotten their warning by now. She sent it the first time they'd gone into town while investigating the murder of those poor people. Though letters were nearly impossible to send into the Empire, Wendelin had certain ways of getting around that. And as for Kael, well, that was another reason why she was here, on this dock, about to get onto this ship. She had awoken this morning and slipped the amethyst ring off her finger. It had felt like a blessed release, a final shadow lifted from her heart. But there were still words left unsaid between them, and she needed to make sure he was safe. And would remain that way. So you're going to get the key from your old master, find the captain, and then what? Complete submission to her indeed. Then I go north. And I'm supposed to sit on my ass for the next gods know how many months? She rolled her eyes. You're not exactly inconspicuous, Rowan. If your tattoos don't attract attention, then the hair, the ears, the teeth... I have another form, you know. And, just like I said, magic doesn't work there anymore. You'd be trapped in that form. Though I do hear that Rifthold rats are particularly delicious. If you want to eat them for months. He glared at her, then scanned the ship, even though she knew he'd snuck out of their room at their inn last night to inspect it already. We're stronger together than apart. If I'd known you would be such a pain in my ass, I never would have let you swear that oath. Aelin. At least he wasn't calling her Majesty or my lady. Either as yourself or as Selena, they will try to find you and kill you. They are probably already tracking you down. We could go to Varese right now and approach your mother's mortal kin, the Ash Rivers. They might have a plan. My chance at success is getting the word key out of Rifthold. My chance at success in getting the word key out of Rifthold lies in stealth, as Selena. Please, he said, but she merely lifted her chin. I'm going, Rowan. I will gather the rest of my court, our court, and then we will raise the greatest army the world has ever witnessed. I will call in every favor, every debt owed to Selena Sardothian, to my parents, to my bloodline. And then she looked toward the sea, toward home. And then I'm going to rattle the stars. She put her arms around him, a promise. Soon. I will send for you soon, when the time is right. Until then, try to make yourself useful. He shook his head, but gripped her in a bone-crushing embrace. He pulled back far enough to look at her. Perhaps I'll go help repair Mistward. She nodded. You never told me, she said, what you were praying to Mala for that morning before we entered Dornell. For a moment it looked like he wouldn't tell her, but then he quietly said, I prayed for two things. I asked her to ensure you survived the encounter with Maeve, to guide you and give you the strength you needed. That strange, comforting warmth, that presence that had reassured her. The setting sun kissed her cheeks as if in confirmation, and a shiver went down her spine. And the second? It was a selfish wish, and a fool's hope. She read the rest of it in his eyes, but it came true. Dangerous for a prince of ice and wind to pray to the Firebringer, she managed to say. Rowan shrugged, a secret smile on his face as he wiped away the tear that escaped down her cheek. For some reason, Mala likes me, and agreed that you and I make a formidable pair. But she didn't want to know, didn't want to think about the sun goddess and her agenda as she flung herself on Rowan, breathing in his scent, memorizing the feel of him. The first member of her court, the court that would change the world, the court that would rebuild it, together. She boarded the boat as night fell, herded into the galley with the other passengers to keep them from learning the route through the reef. With little fuss they set sail, and when they were at last allowed out of the galley, she emerged onto the deck to find dark, open ocean around them. A white-tailed hawk still flew overhead, and it swooped low to brush its star-silvered wing against her cheek in farewell before it turned back with a sharp cry. In the moonless light she traced the scar on her palm, the oath to Nehemiah. She would retrieve the first word key from Erebin and track down the others, and then find a way to put the word keys back into their gate. She would free magic and destroy the king and save her people, no matter the odds, no matter how long it took, no matter how far she had to go. She lifted her face to the stars. She was Aelin Ashriver Galathinius, heir of two mighty bloodlines, protector of a once glorious people and queen of Terrasin. She was Aelin Ashriver Galathinius, and to say this entirely. She was Aelin Ashriver Galathinius, and she would not be afraid. Yeah, I figured that was her accepting her name as Aelin and not Selena. So now I will be calling her Aelin and not Selena anymore. Oh my god. Everything turned to shit again, y'all. Everything turned to shit again. At least this time it wasn't for Aelin. It was for fucking... Oh, God. How are we feeling? Well, I'm feeling great. I'm feeling wonderful. Never been happier. I love it here. I love this book series. I'm having so much fun. It's so much fun reading this series. So much fun. Oh my god. Okay. So, let's go over what happened. Manon is leader, right? Okay. Saoirse's dead. Chaol is a fugitive. Aedion is being tortured. Dorian's in trouble. What else happened? Aelin is Aelin now. Dorian tried to put Saoirse back together. Thank you for that. I absolutely needed to be reminded of that. No series has hurt me the way this series has. Even the final book of Harry Potter did not hurt me like this. Even fucking Hunger Games did not hurt me like this. And I cried over Hunger Games. I cried so hard over Hunger Games. Not like Humpty Dumpty. Y'all, it's too soon. Her body ain't even... I was gonna say her body's not even cold yet, but her body is definitely cold. And it is because of Dorian. Thanks, Dorian. But no, Deathly Hallows, I was throwing up, like crying. Song of Achilles, it's not a series. I still don't know. I feel like Song of Achilles, I don't know why I'm saying Achilles. Song of Achilles and Assassin's Blade are like tied for the books that have made me cry the hardest. But I will say that the pain that I felt, like the book hangover I got after finishing them, Assassin's Blade was worse. It was worse. I'm too emotional right now to think about that book, first of all. Okay, well, I'm done for today. Emotionally done. Mentally done. Physically done. Spiritually done for today. I don't want to do this anymore. So, I'm going to go and sit in front of the lake and cry. Because I don't think anyone's here. I think I'm the only person at this lake. So, I'm just gonna go sit down and cry for a second. I might jump in. So, if y'all never see me again, it's because of this series. And I want Sarah J. Maas to feel guilty for causing my death. So, if I end up not coming back, please tell Sarah that it's because of her. I'm just kidding. Anyway, I will see y'all after my vacation. Maybe during my vacation. It depends on how I'm feeling after. It just depends on if I'm up for it. I'll let you guys know. So, I'll see y'all in a week. If not, I'll see y'all in a couple days at the beach. So, yeah. Love y'all. Bye.